Both The Shawshank Redemption and The Truman Show are stories about a man told by someone other than himself. But that's really where the similarities end. Andy Dufresne arrives at Shawshank State Penitentiary in 1947, and from day one he is followed by the eyes and narration of one Ellis "Red" Redding. Red leads us through nearly 2 decades of Andy's life at Shawshank, until one morning during roll call in 1966, Andy's jail cell is empty, with him nowhere in sight. Meanwhile, Truman Burbank is the most insight man in television history. The world saw him be born, graduate, get married, and nearly sees him die. He was the main character of his very own show that he didn't even know he was a part of. After a star falls from the sky, we follow Truman on his journey of dissecting what is real and what is a figment of his director's imagination. Two men fighting to escape their prisons, whether they knew they were trapped in the first place or not. Let's take a glance at how they do it and how sound, camera, and story elevates their endings. There's sound, and most importantly speech, in both of these scenes, and yet they could not be any more different. Just like in the majority of The Shawshank Redemption, Red is narrating. This is a non-diegetic sound, much like the dramatic music that accompanies Andy's escape. Andy can't hear Red because he's actually speaking to us, not him. Diegetic sound is everywhere in this scene, particularly the thunder which gives Andy cover smashing open the sewage pipe, and the heavy rain as he tumbles into the river outside of the prison. Truman's escape is accompanied by a dramatic, gentle piano until it's interrupted by the sound of his boat's bowsprit piercing the wall of the Sea Haven set. This is followed by asynchronous sound as music plays over Truman beating at the wall. In this scene, there's also omnipotent speech. However, it's not in the way that Red delivers Andy's story, but rather the director of the show, Christoph, speaking directly to Truman to talk him out of leaving. Also different from Shawshank, Truman can actually hear him and speak back, which gives us this fantastic delivery.
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yeah.
In week 7, we took a look at how camera angles can affect the way we interpret a scene or view a character. The most notable use in the Shawshank scene is when the camera rises to see Andy basking in the rain. Usually, we associate a high camera angle on a character as making them seem small or at a disadvantage. However, looking from a bird's eye view as Andy stretches out his arms, we can see this as symbolic of his elated emotions, and definitely as a representation of his freedom. Camera angle in the Truman Show scene is subtle, but really impactful once you actually notice it. As Christoph speaks to Truman, we see him at a high angle, making him appear small as Christoph tries to convince him to stay in Sea Haven. He speaks to him like a child, like he doesn't know what he wants. Then, as Truman takes his bow, the camera lowers to an angle that's level with him. We are on an even plane with a man who, for the first time in his life, is taking control. The lowered angle here gives to Truman power not by making him above Christoph, but by making him equal. We know what happens after Andy escapes prison. We know where he goes and what he does with the warden's banking information. But for a moment, we break off. For a moment, we're with Red in the aftermath of Andy's escape. Stories with the lunch table to Red's eventual release, all the way to when he reunites with Andy in Mexico. That's where the movie leaves us, Andy, and Red on that beach. Finally happy and finally free. However, after he walks through that door, we never see Truman again. And in all honesty, it's for the best. We can hope that he's reunited with his love interest Sylvia, or he finally finds peace outside of Sea Haven. But this is the one thing that the audience will never get to see. After nearly 30 years of his life being on surveillance for entertainment, he deserves to be able to leave the cameras behind. What a perfect ending to The Truman Show. Speaking of leaving the cameras, that's it for me. The Shawshank Redemption and The Truman Show are strikingly different movies in regards to their plots, tones, and especially how they handle the escapes of their main characters. They approach the use of sound differently with both diegetic and non-diegetic speech. We looked at how the angle of the camera can give a character power, whether it be by raising or lowering the angle. They also give their characters differently appropriate endings for each of them, in the form of seeing promises come to fruition, or not seeing them at all. 2 movies, 2 escape scenes, 4 years apart. And 1 video essay given to you by me. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for an amazing semester. And since I won't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good